Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to rounds 13 and 14 of VSR Phoenix Season 9 of As always, I should say, I am Regan Clark. You join us here in the latter parts of the championship, the final 3 weeks here. The end of days is nigh for the Porsche Cup era in VSR Phoenix, and tapering that end of the championship forthcoming here at rounds 13 and 14 is the Oulton Park International Circuit. Founded in 1953 on the Oulton estate, former farmland, and then turned US military garrison under General Patton, Oulton Park's history is defined by its place in national motorsports here in the UK, with both the BTCC, the British Superbike Championships, and British GT Championships all holding rounds in the modern day. Historically, it held, up until 2004, a special non-championship event for the discerning few at the pinnacle of motorsports elite, the Oulton Park International Gold Cup. It was a prestigious event tailored at the likes of the motorsporting elite, such as, but not limited to, Sterling Moss, Jack Brabham, Jackie Stewart, Jackie Ickx, John Surtees, Denny Holm, and Tim Harvey. That, of course, ran up until 2004. Right now, though, it's going to hold rounds 13 and 14 of the championship, and we're amongst the final 3 weeks of competition here in Season 9, starting today here on October 22nd. Then next week we'll still be in the UK, but for the last of our 60-minute races at the Grand Prix Circuit Silverstone on the 29th for round 15 of the championship. Then we get to close down this chapter here. Season 9 has definitely been, for the greater part of it, quite the crowd splitter here in VSR Phoenix, but coming to a close on no later than bonfire night. As a matter of fact, it'll be fireworks for the season's end at round 16 and 17 at the Hungara Ring. We watch on board at the moment with Regent and heading straight into qualifying. No formalities involved. Getting a look at those qualifying predictions, then it pitches the number 420 at the top of the timing charts at 136.453 and ahead of VSR Grizz in second. Wishful Winnings predicted at third, ahead of VSR Antion in fourth. Tommy predicted in fifth. VSR Twiglet predicted sixth. Oatsy seventh. Bully Boy eighth. Shawnee Mac ninth, and Smug Git on return is predicted at a top 10 appearance. Of course, 2 qualifying sessions and 2 30-minute races up for grabs today. At the moment, we're on board with Regent, who's already into the first of his flying laps, so we'll stay on board with the number 420 on his way down through Sector 2. Making his way there into Britain's at turns 7, 8 and 9, then on his way up the hilltop straight to turns 10 and 11 at Hislops. Getting a look at those championship standings then as we stay on board here with Regent. He finds himself in and amongst the gold rankings, so we're better to start then up in the gold rankings. He finds himself currently, looking at it here, at the back of the championship charts, and that's because he's been, for the greater part of this season, a bit of a no-show sighting. This could be his day then, after long last, to come home and take a victory here in VSR Phoenix. The 420 is looking likely to do so with his qualifying predictions and outlook for today. At the front of the pack, though, it's 35 points up front between the leading pair. The championship still up for grabs between Blue Frog and Elite Cassie, the two of them trading blows in the last 2 rounds from last week for race wins over the course of rounds 11 and 12. VSR Oatsy finds himself third in the championship and 40 points, I should say, ahead of Tommy in fourth. We've just seen across the line then Regent was provisionally fastest, but then immediately knocked down a peg by the presence of VSR Oatsy. Puts 121 thousandths of a second on the number 420 right off the bat here as we enter the halfway mark of qualifying today. Looking further down through those championship standings to silver, we see that it's currently 52 points between the leading pair, VSR Grizz and VSR Twiglet, with VSR Antion hanging around in the back of that top 3 and quite a country mile away from Bully Boy, now fourth in the championship and ahead of Tommy Johansson and Funky Fish. VSR Smiler and Scott Milbank still joint last in the championship. Then into bronze, and we find ourselves with the biggest lead of all, 112 points between Shawnee Mac and VSR Dollar Up. That is very clearly, by the looks of it, could even be by the end of today, the championship wrapped for the number 4 in his bronze division charge, I should say. He'll be shortly up to silver, and then later down the line could be up within a chance of gold come season 11. So, having rolled in thick and fast here, the timing charts now led by the Blue Frog in the number 61. Of course, he's in that title charge this season, leading by that aforementioned 35 points to Elite Cassie, and to put the Dutchman on the back foot here in the latter round of the championship. Blue Frog, it looks to be his championship to take. Looking at those previous wins, of course, he was one of two in that fight, rounds 11 and 12. Round 11 going to Blue Frog, round 12 going to Elite Cassie. It was quite a lot to discuss over the course of the last couple of rounds of the championship. Right now, ever since round 8, actually looking at it here, if you were to take a look all the way as far back as round 7, we've had a completely new race winner from round 7 to where we are today, nearly 7 rounds on. Regent retakes the fastest time then, ahead of Blue Frog, pushes him down to second, pushes Grizz down to third. Oatsy now down to 4th place. Just across the line a moment ago when Elite Cassie up to third, sandwiched now in between the Silver Division charge and his own charge there for gold. Next to the line at the moment, the number 61, so we'll see what the rebuttal is here by the Blue Frog. He's had an incredibly strong season so far. Getting a look here down towards the line. Will it be back up to pole position this early on for him? Bear in mind, 4 minutes, 20 seconds left to go. So across the line, sadly, no improvement there. Just in and around a quarter of a second between himself and Regent. And he's actually pushed now to the back of the podium by VSR. Grizz puts it to within a 10th of the fastest time. Still held on to at the moment by Regent. So that potential prophesized pole position here for the 420 could be still on the table. 4 minutes left to go. Actually a little bit less than that, as we did start the timers a little late by nature of the fact that we had no free practice session to attune to here, so we weren't able to kick off the timers right on the dot here. Looking at the difference in time, it's about a factor of I want to say about 17 seconds between the actual qualifying time and what you see at the top of your screens there with our timers. So down and out of, looking at it here, out of Lodge Corner and Deer Leap down towards the line. Can Regent extend on the margins there? Yes, he can. Puts nearly half a second between himself and VSR Grizz, so he is looking to dominate this field today. Here in rounds 13 and 14, you can see sliding his way out of Old Hall Corner. We'll get that full breakdown tour, though, of Oulton Park when we head into the first of our 2 formation laps today for round 13 of the championship. Already, though, despite the smaller grids we've had in the last couple of weeks of competition here in VSR Phoenix, they've still proven, and definitely looking back through the calendar, one such example absolutely springs to mind being Zandvoort back last week. Was a fantastic ensemble of races to watch. Let's see if we can continue the trend of good racing here in VSR Phoenix, heading into a three-part chapter here in Great Britain. Now pushed out of commission by 0.02 of a second by the Blue Frog. The number 61 now up to the fastest time. The number 1 next to the line, it's VSR Antion. Can he get up and ahead of VSR Oatsy across the line? Sadly, not this time around. Getting a look for where the nearest valid times are coming from. It's back to Regent as he makes his way down through Hislops. Kicking up the tyre wall with him there. You can see trying to find every available inch of the track. He's out through turn 12, now on the run up through Clay Hill at turn 13. Down towards turn 14 at Water Tower, then into turn 15 at Druids. Not to be confused with turn 2 at Brands Hatch, another MSV circuit. Down towards turn 16, into turn 17 after. So through turn 16, we can see holding that left-hand side of the track to sort of rocket himself out for the run in towards turn 17. Will it be an improvement this time around, or are we seeing him begin the charge back up to pole position? The gap is incredibly fine there on the front row, 0.02 of a second. Bear in mind, this season alone, at another MSV circuit, looking back through the calendar, if we take a look all the way back to rounds 8 and 9, we saw for the first time ever in our broadcast history a double pole position, a joint pole, as it were, with 2 drivers on exactly the same time. So we know qualifying in the Porsche Cup era has been airtight, and this is no exemption here in Oulton Park. Regent having to back out of that last lap, and he is getting increasingly vulnerable here. 106 thousandths away from him at this time, and 108 thousandths away from pole position as Elite Cassie now closing the gaps down here. And we're amongst those final flying laps here in Oulton Park, so it's a case of whether or not either of these 3 drivers can force even a slight bit of an improvement in the way of things. Still waiting to see the times here from the 196 and the 96. VSR Twiglet just down across the line there from 10th place. Still yet to lay a time in on the charts. It could be a back of the field start here for Twiglet and for Bully Boy as well. We've seen him recently make his way up to 4th in the Silver Championships. Right now runs into the emergency exit, and oh my goodness, off in front of him there, that was VSR Oatsy. So that's the end of 2 qualifying endeavors there, 9th and 5th. Right now, as it stands, no one driver stands in the position to start another flying lap. They're all just a little too far away. You can see that the timers have actually wrapped up in game. So for these drivers, I don't believe they will be able to make it to the line here by the time our timers wrap up. Not that it would make any difference. You can see, though, into the pit lanes right now, Region and Elite Cassie, the only driver left to try and extend the margins, currently holds on to a very comfortable pole position, and it's the Blue Frog in the number 61. So kicking things off with a real bang then. The 61 looks to be up to grabs here on pole position. No chance from anywhere else on the grid for that time to have dropped away from him. A 1:36.412 to beat is his own personal and currently the session best. Down towards the line then. Seems the writing's on the wall here. The Blue Frog looking to take home pole position then. That's the fastest lap. He crosses the line, and with no further improvements, he does take the fastest lap, and by proxy, pole position. A 1:36.412 puts Blue Frog at the front of the field. The number one next to the line then, just at the end of today's session. VSR Antion remains in 6th for the start of round 13. So straight into the line of fire for this round of the championship. Very little time to collect oneself. And that's for driver and viewer alike. A lot of information to process in a very short amount of time. Of course, we've just come out of the first of our 2 qualifying sessions today. That's for round 13 of the championship coming up in a moment's time. And then round 14 follows right on its trails. Another 10-minute qualifying session like the one you've just seen today. And another 30-minute race to follow before we wrap things up here in Oulton Park. We'll be heading to Silverstone for the next round of the championship for the last of the 60-minute races. Regent misses out of pole position by 0.02 of a second. So we've seen margins get even tighter than that. I'm genuinely surprised to say that that's among the larger margins we've seen from a lot of these drivers, especially in the latter half of the championship. Looking back through those previous wins, we brought them up a little earlier on today, but you can see after the recent departures then out of round 8, by just Boris, and actually out of round 9, I should say, it has been new winners every single week and every single round by that technicality. Tommy, Greenman, Blue Frog, and Elite Cassie. Well, technically Cassie's second win there. If you were to take a look from round 7 to now, that's a new name on the charts every week. Or round 5 to round 11 if you want to run it in the opposite direction. Nonetheless, let's get on to the discussion of round 13 of the championship here in VSR Phoenix Season 9, and heralding the start of today's grid from pole position, the number 61 by 0.02 of a second. It's the Blue Frog up front alongside him then. Region on the front row in the 420. Could be a very strong start to be expected. He starts to the outside on the run down towards Old Hall Corner at turn 1. Nonetheless, he is in a very, very powerful spot on today's grid. Right behind them then, Elite Cassie and VSR Grizz. VSR Oatsy rounds out the top 5. And then rounding out the third row on 6th place, it's VSR Antion. And ahead of Shawnee Mack in 7th, Smug Git in 8th place, Bully Boy 9th, and VSR Twiglet rounds out this 10-car grid. The grid may be small, but the racing is likely to be mighty here at Oulton Park. And right now, with about 2 minutes left to go, let's discuss the news for today. And I'm delighted to finally have something to talk about in the world of motorsporting news. Starting things off then, High-Tech TGR signs Colton Herta for 2026 for the FIA Formula 2 World Championship. This comes in following of the news that Herta had been signed as a test and development driver for Cadillac Formula 1. So it seems now the IndyCar talent is gearing himself up at a position in Formula 1 by the end of the decade. And it starts right here in Formula 2. This is going to be a very exciting time as 2 worlds collide coming into 2026. Then elsewhere in the world of motorsports, reeling off of the back of a chaotic Central European rally, Elfyn Evans and Scott Martin retake the championship lead and put themselves ever closer now with 2 rounds left to go to being the first British champion since Richard Burns in 2001. It will be Evans' first ever in the World Rally Championship. Bear in mind, he now overtakes his teammate Sébastien Ogier after a big wipeout for him and co-driver Vincent Landé at the recently just passed Central Europe Rally, and it puts him down to joint second as Kalle Rovanperä and Jonne Halttunen take the leading position in that rally, putting themselves up to a joint second with Ogier. So right now, it's Evans, Ogier, and Rovanperä, all 3 of them divided by 13 points front to back. With 2 more rounds left to go, could it be Elfyn Evans' first? Could it be Kalle Rovanperä's third as he announces his retirement from the World Rally Championship? Or could it be Seb Ogier's record equaling 9th? With only Japan and Saudi Arabia left, it hangs in the balance. It's going to be a very exciting time in the next couple of months to be a rally fan. But right now, it's going to be a great time to be a VSR fan. We're on that 30-second warning, so we're about to begin the run here on the formation lap for round 13 of the championship. Of course, we've discussed over the last couple of weeks, but I feel the need to reiterate this point, and it has been confirmed by the higher-ups at VSR that coming into Season 10, they will be returning to the GT3. So the Porsche Cup era is one of these very eccentric seasons we've seen here. It's had quite the mixed reaction. I'd definitely say it's given us some of the greatest racing we've seen here, just by nature of forcing all of these drivers that are very used to their own respective machines under the same sort of veil here, and with a car as polarizing as the Porsche 911 992. To refresh your tech data on this car, of course, introduced in 2021 as the 992 GT3, the 8th generation Porsche 911, features a 4-litre Porsche MA 2.23 naturally aspirated flat six, making somewhere in the ballpark of 510 metric horsepower, and is currently chained to a 6-speed sequential Porsche gearbox, weighing in at around 1,260 kilos. It is a fantastic work of automotive witchcraft. 8 generations in, and still the world's most popular sports car, the 911, reigns into the modern day then. And these cars have been a real show. To refresh your knowledge, for those of you tuning in for the first time, of course, these have the same ABS system developed by Bosch Motorsports that they use over on GT3 cars. But here's the main caveat: with 510 horsepower and less efficient aero, as it's utilizing a lot of its road-ready counterparts from the 911 GT3 road car. These do not have traction control, so you have 510 metric horsepower under that rear axle, weighed already down by its 4-litre flat six engine. And all of that chained together with no ability for the car to correct itself through a corner. You can see it there sliding his way down through Shell Oils. That was in the background, the 98 of Elite Cassie. And he's been the real the showboat with that car. He's been a real stuntman over the course of this season. We've seen him slide on many an occasion. And he really was able to revel in taking a home ground victory back in Zandvoort last week. So here as we head into Oulton Park, this is going to be quite an exciting one. We just exited Britons and down into Hislops, and do expect to see a lot of trouble in that opening sector down through the Island Bend and Cascades, turns 3 and 4, Cascades into Island Bend, I should say. Major overtaking spots, of course, to be expected down at turn 1, then on the run to turns 2 and 3 at Dentons and Cascades. Now on the exit right now of turn 12 on our way into Clay Hill. The next of our overtaking opportunities coming up here very shortly on the exit of Water Tower into Druids. Now it is risky, but it isn't impossible. We've seen it done before. Could we yet see it done again here in the Porsche Cup era? With the Blue Frog controlling the pace of the pack at the moment, you can see Regents having absolutely none of it, and neither too is Elite Cassie. These three set to be an incredibly strong contender there on the podium. You can see there the synchronized howl of 10 4-litre flat six engines, some of the loudest engines in motorsports, mind you. When I was able to visit the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit back in 2022 during the British Grand Prix, the Porsche Super Cups were among the loudest cars on track. Right now we're treated to the sound of 10 of them in unison as they go rolling now out of turn 16 down towards turn 17. As we roll now, 10 cars in all, 5 either side of it for round 13 of VSR Phoenix Season 9. Down towards the line here, 30 minutes against the clock in Oulton Park. Without further ado, leading from the front, the number 61, We're Green and Racing here in Oulton Park. And a fantastic start by Regent already, right off the bat there, jumping onto the 61's rear end, out through turn 1, right behind them, Elite Cassie and Grizz for a rip-roaring start here at Oulton Park. A brilliant, brilliant getaway there, and a great defense through turn 1 by the 61. Keeps him up in the lead, but that is an incredibly intense start had ever I seen one there out of the 420. It was 0.02 of a second that divided them over quali, and I really don't think we'll be seeing gaps that finite here. It'll be one or done for either of them. Down towards turn 4, now into turn 5. We can see having dropped away just a little bit there later onto the brakes in the 420. Regent still clinging close to the race lead. We do have the yellow flags out, the first of our victims here claimed, and it's the number 29 in serious turmoil. It's Smug Gear at the back of the field here, and we did say expect there to be trouble down at turns 3 and 4 at Cascades and the Island Bend, and it's already claimed its first victim back into green flag conditions as he rejoins after turn 5. You can see the clear divide in the pack here, caught in the split of it right now. Bully Boy 96 in the number 196 finds himself down in 7th place and a fair distance from his comrades up in the top 5. Looking here from the front, though, let's see if we can get a look on board with Elite Cassie and Regent. This is in the fight for second, and it's contact between the 420 and the 98, cascading off track at turn 15 at Druids. There goes. That was the 420, sorry, of Regent. He is back out on track, but he is not going to be particularly happy with what has just played out in front of his eyes there. That will be boiling blood in the 420. The bottom line, though, Elite Cassie up to second, Grizz up to third, Antion up to fourth. You can see in that last lap as well. Only other driver inside of that podium right now to be hitting in and around the 140 mark as we make our way down into what is effectively lap 1 of today's race. Looking down the line here, we can see Shawnee Mack up in 9th place now. Actually down in 9th place. He had an absolute rotter of a start. I should say that. Out through, I think it was Britain's to Hislops, he had a bit of bother. We weren't exactly able to pick up what it was, but the number 4 now down to 9th place. Smudgett at the back of the field. The first of the victims claimed here at turn 4 at the Island Bend. Now we see being crossed by Bully Boy in the 196. Down in 8th place now. He drops behind Twiglet. So on a series of bad starts here is our bottom 3. Blue Frog now 0.8 of a second from his championship rival. Bear in mind, 35 points between the pair of them and 2 races up for grabs today. 2 races worth of points. Every ounce counts here in this very late stage of Season 9. You can see here Oatsy and Antion still very close to one another, 0.6 of a second between the pair. This is in contention of 4th place. You can see hanging around in the background after his incident down at this very corner here, turn 15, after side-by-side contact with Elite Cassie, is Regent now hanging around in 6th place, but not too far away at all. The charge could definitely be still on the charts here. Bear in mind, we're only 4 minutes in to round 13 of the championship for our first of 2 races here at Oulton Park. But we're going to cut on board, though, with our leading pair, as Elite Cassie has dropped the time away and then some. On board with the 98 and what is definitely now the fight for first place, with Blue Frog now having to take up a more defensive stance at his exit of turn 2 at Denton's, then into Cascades. You can see he has a much better line. A bit of aero wash striking the 98 where it hurts on the exit of Cascades. Now through Lakeside, on our way down towards the Island Bend. You can see a brilliant getaway here on our run down towards turn 4. Watching on board with Elite Cassie, you can see was fidgeting with the car there, looking for grip. And sliding his way out. That's fantastic vehicle control by Elite Cassie. He's using the weight of the car to his advantage. I mean, if it doesn't end up being a case that he's able to secure the Gold Championship this season, I'd definitely say have a look into potentially some avenues for rallying, because that is some phenomenal car control out of the 98. Down through turn 10, then into Hislops at turn 11 and 12. On a run into sector 3 now, heading up towards Clay Hill at turn 13. They're still very close to one another at this time. Now having a look 5 minutes into today's session, they find themselves as one of the closest fights on the field, and that's complemented further down the line by Oatsy v Antion. That clash for 4th place now absolutely on the charts here, and with Regent closing in last interval there, 1.017 seconds. There could be a 3-way fight for 4th place on our hands. You can see it start to form in front of our very eyes, and it is a beautiful sight indeed. Regent now back on the charge. Looking here with our leading pair as Elite Cassie takes the fastest lap of the race. The number 98 is still gearing up for a swap of hands here for the race lead. Covering him off through turn 1 is the 61 of Blue Frog. This has already been a fantastic opening 5 minutes to today's race. Now trying around the outside, will be to the inside at Denton's, the outside though at Cascades. What is he cooking this time around? We'll see, as on the exit of turn 3 he's had a brilliant launch from the exit of turn 3 to propel himself on the run into turn 4 at the Island Bend. This is steely determination on the front row between these two. Great defense by the 61, great offense by the 98 as they make their way through Shell Oils in the background, lurking there on 3rd place. And in the front of the silver division is VSR Grizz. Right behind him though, VSR Antion has really got the world's weight on his shoulders. Oatsy on his tail there, and so too is Regent, charging as they make their way through Britain's. Oh, but off in the background, there goes Regent again. A little flick out there on the 420. He's struggling with that machine. VSR Twiglet gets him up the inside there on the run. up through the hilltop straight down towards Hislops. Looking between these two here, they're still very, very close. Last recorded interval showed 0.3 of a second. That's the same story up front. We get to see between Elite Cassie and the Blue Frog in the lead of today's race. 23 minutes left to go. Already a fantastic opening 10 minutes to today's race in Oulton Park. One of two that we get, of course. Round 13 we're currently in the midst of. And we'll be heading into... Oh, it's contact by the looks of it. Or is it a spin? Let's get a look at that on the replays just to try and... Oh, my word. A contact there between himself and the 44. We look back up, we see him get cartwheeled out of turn 16. That is brutal. Let's see exactly what went on down towards Lodge Corner. Yes, it was a bit of contact between the 98 and the 61. And then we see roll forwards, gets pirouetted by that 44. That's got nasty for the Blue Frog. He now finds himself behind Antion. And this is fantastic news for Regent, as he now finds himself back up in the top 5 with very little work having to have actually been done at the time. Oatsy now in second place. Grizz not too far away in third. But you can see quite hefty nose damage on that 44 after the collision down at turn 16. 3 seconds away at the last interval there. Regent is not too far off being back on the podium. The bottom line, after everything's said and done, that little bump and run has given Elite Cassie the lead of today's race. Oatsy in second, Grizz third, Regent fourth. Twiglet up to fifth. We can see right behind here a battle between Antion and the Blue Frog. We'll stay on board here with the number 01, currently in that fight for 6th place on track. They make their way down towards Hislops. You can see the damage on display for the 61. He is wrestling with that car. You can see just lurking off in the background is the 29 on his way down towards turn 4. That smug git after the earlier incidents of today's race. He finds himself quite a distance from the nearest car on track. Poor Antion here. He's going to have to put on a pretty solid fight. He's been holding on for the longest time to his position. Now finds himself with a new adversary in the form of the 61. His way down towards turn 16, the very same area last lap that led to this whole situation at large. We've just seen that Smug Git is out of today's race, so that's the first of our DNFs here for round 13 of the championship. Nearly 10 minutes in, and already the towel's in for one. Down through turn 1 we go, though. You can see peeking around at every single corner. The Blue Frog may be damaged, but that has not taken his fighting spirit away by even a long shot here. Down towards turn 3. You can see better of the two exits there, seemingly for the number 1 at this time. Though bear in mind he still has the 61 breathing down his neck on the run towards turn 4. You can see having a nose in very early, as a matter of fact, is the Blue Frog. So could be an indication here of him very quickly adapting to the now damaged state of his Porsche. Trying to nose in, knowing that the car won't be able to follow under conventional circumstances. Moreover, he's having to deal with quite a hefty bit of aero wash from being in the wake of that number 1. So out through Britain's, now on the run up the hilltop straight. You can see a brilliant exit by the Blue Frog. It does leave Antion quite vulnerable here, but I think he's just got the straight line speed to keep this one out in front for 6th place as he heads down into Hislops. Dust in his eye there, courtesy of the 96 of VSR Twiglet. We'll get a look up the rows here in a moment's time, because I do believe we have a 3-car fight for 2nd place to be discussing. So cutting away here from the fight of 6th place, we'll catch up with them as and when we can. We can see here are your 3 contenders for 2nd place. VSR Oatsy leading the charge. The Silver Division champion of Season 8 now finds his footing very firmly on the podium here in round 13 of the championship after the chicanery that had gone on up front. He leads that charge in this 3-car train for 2nd place. Right behind him is his former championship rival in silver, VSR Grizz, now heralding the lead of the Silver Division. And then right behind him is Regent on a scorned start to today's race and looking for blood. You can see that battle of 6th place just picking back up with that after turn 1. Right now it's still front to rear here, 1 and 61, 6th and 7th. Elite Cassie has just completely disappeared up the road here. It's a Sunday drive for him, even though we're in the middle of the week. VSR Oatsy, though, has really got his hands full here with Grizz right onto his tail as we head down towards the Shell Oils corner. He was looking for it, but covered off on the inside by the number 6. So let's see if we can catch on board here. We can see from Regent's point of view, but I want to try and get a look on here with either of these two. VSR Oatsy and VSR Grizz reunite here under the anvil of close quarters racing here in VSR Phoenix. Now with a better of two exits, it's Grizz, but he'll be to the outside of the run down towards Hislop. So he's got the run for it, but Oatsy's covered him off on the inside of the run down towards turn 10. This is brilliant stuff, and Grizz is going for it as he's up the inside at Hislop's, but with a better exit in towards turn 12 is the number 6 now, looping back onto him as he now sends himself into almost a quarter spin, then a half spin. He's done well to keep that out of a fishtail, but my words, that could have gone horribly, horribly wrong. The number 6 then losing his position to the number 61 as Blue Frog now out in front of Antion. Further off in the background there, that looks like even more issues up for grabs for VSR Oatsy. That has been one thing after another there, as he's now dropped from 2nd to 7th. Taking up the helm, though, of 2nd place, VSR Grizz. And right now, right behind him, you can see there, that's Regent looking to return to where he started today's race from. So this is going to be one stern defense coming up for the 44 if he means to hold on to 2nd place today. Bear in mind, we're only a few minutes out from the halfway mark. It's been a delightful first race of 2 today. Plenty of action and plenty of drama. Let's see how it follows up, though, in the next 18 minutes, as we're now watching the beginning of another part here of that fight for 2nd place. On board right now with VSR Grizz. Looking over his rear view, just to give you a scope of the distance between himself and the rest of that top 5. All of them at around the same distance to one another there, just give or take a few tenths of a second. Closest of them, of course, is Regent to Grizz, as we see Grizz is forced to cut his lops. Could that be a penalty for him if he keeps that up? But it is dirty tyres on the exit of turn 12, so he's not going to be doing himself many favours. Regent would make the argument there that he's gained an advantage as he's now gone from 1 second to 1.3. You can see there, given the lights, and with every reason too, as he protests what's just gone on there. Can't exactly ascertain his motives, but if I had to try and get inside his mind, I'm assuming he's thinking maybe the Grizz should have slowed down a little bit more and accepted the consequences of that mistake. But it seems that Karma has a weird way of working things out in the long run. Out of turn 16, very, very long into that corner. Now on the exit of turn 17, that gap comes away massively. Now sub-second between himself and Regent. Despite all of that, though, he finds himself 2 tenths faster over the course of that last lap. I believe mostly that could be attributed to the cut over Hislops. Down through Cascades at turn 3. Meanwhile, up the road now, nearly 7.5 seconds. Yes, as a matter of fact, as he just exits turn 3, up the road from him is Elite Cassie, looking for his 3rd win this season, and moreover, looking to take the charge back to the Blue Frog, who currently lines up at the back of the top 5. So this could be quite the deciding chapter here at Oulton Park for that Gold Championship. Bear in mind, we do have 2 Silver Division drivers inside of that top 5, VSR Grizz and VSR Twiglet. So I believe that is still technically going to be Division, looking at it here, 4th for the Blue Frog, as he now finds himself actually behind Twiglet and in 6th place. So something seriously... Oh, that's why the number 6 is in, and it's forced everyone down a peg there. So the number 6 of VSR Oatsy now having been reclassified as in the pit lane. Now, that really did throw me off for a second. No, this is still very much so the fight of 2nd place. You're watching the 96 in trouble. That was VSR Twiglet. Now having dropped 3 seconds away from the Blue Frog on his exit of Clay Hill. Down towards turn 16 we head, though, with VSR Grizz and Regent in their fight for 2nd place. Down through Lodge Corner in towards Deer Leap. Much wider on the exit of turn 16 there was Regent. Still puts himself within 8 tenths of a second, as Oatsy looks to be our potential next DNF in today's race. Also, further troubles down the road. Yellow flags out in Sector 3. The number 4 and the number 196 seemingly in trouble. Let's see if we can catch on board with either of them to try and figure out what's gone on there. The number 4 of Shawnee Mack is in. And right now we can see Bully Boy in 8th place, having since, I don't know, rejoined the track there. It's a bit bizarre what on earth went on between himself and the 4, but the 4 is in. And the 196 seemingly a-okay, but you can see, look at that rear bumper, a little bit of scratches there, so that could potentially give us a clue as to what's gone on between the pair of them. towards the back of that field. But bear in mind, they were both towards the back of the field around about the time this happened, so you could definitely make the suggestion these two were scrapping, and someone somewhere has gotten into contact. Now into the pit lane comes the 196. Very bizarre stuff we're seeing here. Quite a few drivers now resorting to the pit lane. Back on board with our fight for second place. It has been a bloodbath here in Oulton Park. Right now it's only 4, actually make that 5 cars still on track. The 98, the 44, the 420, the 61 and the 1 still out on track here, with the number 4, the number 6 and the number 96 and the number 196 all in the pit lane. So past the halfway mark, we are in a very bizarre situation already, with 1 DNF today, that being Smug Git in the 29. Now 4 of our 9 drivers in the pit lane. That's just a little under half of the entire grid. It is dire straits here, seemingly, for the latter rounds of the Porsche Cup era. In towards turn 5 then, that Shell Oils was still watching on with VSR Grizz, but he runs incredibly wide, and that invites Regent all the way up on the inside there. The two are side by side on the run down towards Britain's. Bear in mind, still front to rear, but pushed all the way to the outside through the left. Oh my word, I couldn't even get the words out. Out through turn 6, was pushed to the outside, then on the run into turn 7, 8 and 9. It's contact, and it's come much to the chagrin there of the 420 of Regent, now behind VSR Antion and at the back of the top 5. Well, if he wasn't seeing red in the last incident, believe you me, he is seeing it now. We can see up the road at the moment, side-by-side action between Grizz and Antion. So used to saying Grizz and Oatsy. I mean, those two shared a real limelight over the course of this season. Now he finds 2 of the fluorescent cars on this field, the number 1 and the number 44, but running onto the grass. Oh my word, that was so nearly a disaster for VSR Grizz. Let's get a look at that on the replay. He rejoins now behind Regent. Get a look at that. That is crisis aversion. We see now on the run through turn 13, he goes straight there. So was that wheel troubles for the 44 and avoids there the number 1, rather unintentionally, but by millimeters? That could have been disaster. Regent now up to 4th place. Antion in 3rd. You see exiting the pits now back out onto the track. Seemingly appears to be there Shawnee Mac and Bully Boy. You can see the pair of them making their way out sheepishly from the pit lane. They're taking a little bit of a time there. I don't know if they're waiting for each other. But, you know, the light's green. It's not getting any greener, mate. So let's see what the 196 is up to here. Waiting on the exit of the pit lanes. Meanwhile, oh, I believe I know what's going on here. I think I might be able to put my thinking cap on and maybe have a little bit of a suggestion as to what's going on. He's waiting for Shawnee Mac to unlap. I mean, that's solid sportsmanship. We saw it earlier on in today's broadcast day on Wednesday the 22nd. We saw it over on the Competizione Performance League's opening round in Indianapolis for the Jaguar GT3 Revival Series. There was great sportsmanship on display between Kevin Quinn and Byron Forrest. I think this is kind of what we're seeing there in the latter rounds of VSR Phoenix Season 9. Bully Boy waiting on the exit of the pit lane, knowing no one else is liable to come out at this time except for the 96 here. VSR Twiglet says, well, you know, if you're not going to get out of the pit lane, I will. Bully Boy is actually waiting for the arrival of Shawnee Mac so that the two can continue to race legitimately for position. He sacrificed a chance of a solid result today, but what he has earned back there is good respect out of the Bronze Championship lead, the number 4 of Shawnee Mac. Looking down the line here, we can see what is left of that fight between Regent and Grizz, now flipped on its head as we find Grizz on the back end of it, at the back of the top 5. 10 minutes left to go then. We've covered 2/3 of today's race. We're into that final third. Is now leading the charge by a country mile there, as Elite Cassie, having since moved up to 2nd place, mitigating the damage of what could have been absolutely detrimental results had it played out the way that it did. Blue Frog maintains 2nd place, so minimizing the damage between the pair, but that championship gap is going to be coming down between the pair over the course of today's race. Looking at the difference between the points awarded for P1 and P2, now this is based off of data available via the VSR Phoenix server. It's 50 points for first and 45 points for second. So where the gap is currently, looking at the data here, it's 35 points. It'll drop down to 30 between Cassie and Blue Frog, and it could actually be 29 with that extra fastest lap point for the 98. So the gap is coming away between these two, and if it stays the way that it is, out of Silverstone, we could be seeing a final round dash here for the gold championships between Blue Frog and Cassie, and I for one relish in the opportunity to be able to cover this, because these two have put on a hell of a show over the course of season 9, even though the grids may have been of jumbled size here. And just picking back up with Shawnee Mack and Bully Boy, the two are now reunited, only 3/10 away from one another in the fight of 7th place. So that's a nice little heartwarming story of sportsmanship amongst the pair, adamant to see things out the right way. Grizz into the pit lanes though. The 44 is in, whether by choice or otherwise. The 44 is into the pit lanes, liable to lose out the last of those top 5s courtesy of VSR Twiglet, now looking to unlap himself. And it's definitely been a bit of a mixed bag for racing today. The start was very impressive, but we're seeing here the aftermath of a prolonged bloodied conflict in the Porsche Cups. Bear in mind, this is only a 30-minute race. So Lord only knows what we're going to be seeing heading into round 14 of the championship coming up just after today. Of course, after this round, we'll have another 10-minute qualifying session on the run into round 14 of the championship, which will be another 30-minute race here at Oulton Park, so don't go anywhere. We're only just getting started, but it has been a bit of a confusing start, to say the least. We've had plenty of action, but now we're seeing drivers scattered as if they're in an endurance race. This is a bizarre sight for what has only been 23 minutes worth of racing so far. Shawnee Mack having since gotten ahead of Bully Boy, the two now at the last recorded interval, 6.5 seconds. So Shawnee Mack up to 7th. VSR Twiglet currently in 6th, could be moving up to 5th as Grizz is still in the pit lane here. It has been a very bizarre race. Also having since come into the pit lane, VSR Oulton resides in there, could be another functional DNF for today's race. This track has been indiscriminate and wrathful over the course of today's race. And looking into why that is, I mean, it is an old-fashioned style track, one of the MSV circuits, and shares a lot of its common characteristics with its contemporaries in the motorsports vision groups such as Brands Hatch and Donington Park. And these are very old-fashioned style circuits, quite closely adhering to their original layouts from when the tracks were first conceived, and that old-fashioned ingenuity does bring with it a great deal of challenges. We've just seen there another DNF. I believe that is actually, yes, it's from Regent. That's down and out from the 420. Now down to only functionally, looking at it here, 6 cars left on track. Grizz in the pit lane, so too is VSR Oulton. It's a bit of a sorry sight at the very last couple of rounds of the championship. Right now leading that charge, on for his 3rd win this season, the 98 of Elite Cassie, looking to close down that points gap to the Blue Frog from 35 to 30, could be even to 29 if that first and fastest lap point does count. 5 minutes left to go then. We can see back out onto the track though. He's not called it quits here, but it was a long time spent in the pit lane, seemingly to repair the damage on the nose of that Porsche. So it wasn't a throwing in the towel situation like we originally conceived here. And then, to be honest, it is quite easy to assume that, given how many drivers have come into the pit lanes today. But this was a legitimate pit lane run. This was a pit stop for Grizz to repair the nose on that wounded 44. And he's still emerged inside of that top 5. Admittedly, there have been some real outlying circumstances to keep him in line for that position. Right now, he's not going to be taking the silver division win in today's race, round 13 of the championship. That honour would go to VSR Antion by the looks of things. But I think this kind of sums up the general consensus on the Porsche Cup era. A lot of drivers are not satisfied with it, and a lot of drivers would rather they go back to GT3. But this is a case where we've come so far in the season, it would kind of be short-sighted to close it out now, in my opinion. Of course, I don't run the league, so it's not really my position to comment from any kind of position of authority or understanding, but having been there, having been involved at least partially in the running of leagues before, I can sympathize with the struggles that the race directors will find themselves in and have found themselves in over the course of this season. It is not an easy choice to make that jump away to Porsche Cups, but it has definitely been one that's provided us with a very unique flavor of racing in an industry right now, at least on console, weighed down by conformity. I think we see a lot of the same sort of stuff making its way through. We do have quite the pleasure here on TRTN of being able to cover a lot of series that are breaking the mold, such as this and such as our collaborators over on the Competizione Performance League. It's been a great delight to work with them on some of their projects. We've got some future projects coming up as well with the High Caliber Community League, and of course, where would we be without the NLRL Sunday League, our staple point of the calendar here on TRTN, of which we're heading into season 4 this coming Sunday from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's going to be a fantastic time to be around. Out through turn 5 then, we're watching on board with VSR Grizz as we enter the final minutes of round 13 of the championship. Looking at it on that calendar, only 4 more rounds after today. Round 14 brings us to a close here at Oulton Park. We'll be heading over to Silverstone for round 15, and then the last 2 rounds coming up in Hungary at the Hungara Ring on Bonfire Night. Looking here with the race lead, you can see now actually catching up to the last of the top 5 cars. That's the 96 in front of him of VSR Twiglet. We're watching on board with Elite Cassie, who has took the baton and ran with it. Looking at the course of the previous wins, he took not only a win at home in Zandvoort, but then looking earlier on in the season at round 6 in Valencia. So he's really been quite the maestro for these double sprint races, especially in the absence now of Just Boris after his departure at the end of Nürburgring. Looking at the previous champions as well over the course of the last 8 seasons ran in VSR Phoenix, we find ourselves right now narrowed down to a likely candidate here. One of 2. It could be Blue Frog or it could be Cassie, who puts their names onto that placard of previous champions. We can see last season it was White Doctor. The season before that it was Just Boris. The season before that it was VSR Chris, for the only time in VSR history that a driver has taken multiple championships. The last time he did that was 3 seasons before, in season 3. But we're into that final 2 minutes here, so we're closing up onto the final lap coming. We're down through turn 5, so this is the penultimate lap. The final lap will be coming up at the start of lap 18 for the number 98. So let's see if we can catch on board with a few of the other drivers before the end of today's first of 2 races. Number 4 running slow there down towards the line. You can see dropping back massively into the iron sights of Bully Boy. There could yet be a fight here as we head on to the final 2 laps for these 2 drivers. They start lap 14 further down the line. Down towards turn 3, we can see they've now, since that disconnect, they've been shoved up into 6th place. So they somehow, despite the odds, have found an extra position on hand here at the end of round 13. Ooh, big snap there from the number 4, and that's going to allow Bully Boy up the inside on a run down towards Hislop's, down at turns 10, 11 and 12 up the inside, side by side, and contact, now forced to take the run off as he cuts onto the grass. Oh, what is going on here? I mean, that's a very British encounter had ever I seen one amongst the 96 and the number 4. If you first know you, I insist. It's like watching 2 British people trying to get into an elevator. It's really a little too polite amongst the pair. Down towards turn 4, we can see here VSR Twiglet looking to take 5th in today's race overall. Right now, be on a podium for the Silver Division. Leading that charge for Silver, though. Looking for a Silver Division win for round 13 is VSR Antion in the number 1. But we'll catch on with him in a moment's time. Coming slow down towards the line here. Looks to be VSR Grizz on the run in towards Hislop's. And he's awaiting the arrival of the race lead, that being Elite Cassie. Running slow there. Something was amiss for him down towards Hislop's. But there, oh my goodness, you see the leap by the 98. full airtime for Elite Cassie as he makes his way down towards turns 13 and 14 and 15 for that matter. On his way down towards the line, a little bit of grass there on the left-hand side. So he's going to be really wrestling the car down towards turns 16 and 17. He's hotly awaited at the checkered flag here at the end of round 13, on board with Cassie for his third win this season, sliding out of turn 16, being a bit of a showboat about it, but with every reason to, as he's fought for that one. It's been quite a controversial win for him, but it's his third this season. Looking further around the field, then Blue Frog takes home second place, mitigates the damage there to his championship chances, still leads by about, I think it's in the range right now, 30 or 29 points. It depends on if this league counts fastest lap points. In that case, it's a 29-point gap still to the benefit of the 61. VSR Antion down to the line for the Silver Division win for today, and then 4th and 5th for Grizz and Twiglet. That's the Silver Division podium. You can see here Shawnee Mac fighting till its very last here with Bully Boy for 6th place. These two have shared in a very compelling and heartwarming story of sportsmanship, and you can see they are not giving up their opportunity to get properly hells for bells here down towards turn 16. Looking up the inside is Bully Boy on the number 4 of Shawnee Mac, going long way around. It could be a position change here. Bully Boy down to the line, looks for 6th place, and by the looks of it has nipped that one in the bud. Very, very last second stuff there, but a great finish between the pair and a good shove for good measure. Shawnee Mac takes the Bronze Division win for round 13 of the championship. 3 DNFs, Regent, Oatsy and Smug Git. That's the death toll for round 13, but we get to do this all over again here. Another 30 minutes and another 10-minute qualifying session coming up in just a moment's time. Elite Cassie takes a controversial third win, much to the chagrin of his contemporaries in gold. A great hustle, though, by the 98, the 61 and the number 1 up podium sitters. It's been a very, very interesting race to cover, albeit quite rich with the flavours of drama, especially between himself and Regent. That was quite something to behold. Definitely quite a controversial round between the pair. I mean, especially into that opening lap. That really did look like Regent had a lot of space in that third sector. I mean, it's not our position to cast blame at this point, but I think we're looking a little further past racing incidents after a certain amount of time. But nonetheless, Cassie wins in round 13. Coming up very shortly then, the qualifying for round 14 of the championship before we close out here in Oulton Park. Looking as to how this affects the championship over in silver. Now, looking at where it was before the start of today's round, it's Grizz from Twiglet from Antion. Now, Antion is going to be clawing in at least a little bit of points there ahead towards Twiglet, but the real bottom line we're looking at here is that Grizz is still leading that one strong. That points gap having probably dropped down, I want to say dropped down to probably the high 40s here, doing the rough calculations in my head. Nonetheless, he still leads in the same stroke that we've seen. That Blue Frog still leads ahead of Cassie. So as we wait now for the start of qualifying 2, to recount where we've been over the course of today's round, we're coming up onto round 14 of the championship, having just concluded round 13. Your race winner, Elite Cassie NL, on his third win this season in the 98. We'll be coming up on the qualifying for round 14 in a moment's time. 10 minutes against the clock. We get to do it all over again here before we wrap up in Oulton Park. We'll be seeing you next time around on the 29th of October at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for the last of our trips to Great Britain and the last of our 60-minute races before we head over to Hungary on Bonfire Night, November 5th. For the last 2 rounds of the championship, a double sprint at the Hungaroring to round out season 9. Without further ado, though, another 10 minutes against the clock here. You can see a bit of a tepid start from the grid here. Not a lot of urgency to get out of the field. Can hear engines revving. We'll see exactly who it is rolling across your screens there. That was the number 98 of Elite Cassie. He'll be the first out onto the field. Whether or not we'll see the drivers from last round make their way back onto the grid is another question entirely. Of course, looking back into those qualifying predictions, it was still likely, and it was incredibly close in the last qualifying session for Region. That ended up being a case where the Blue Frog started only 0.02 of a second ahead, so I would definitely say with every chance to get back on the field, he could take home pole position today. But right now, the number 420 is mysteriously absent. Sliding on his way on the exit of turn 5, now in towards turns 6, then to turn 7, 8 and 9 here at Britain's. This is where we saw one of those major contacts from earlier on between Grizz and Regent, as a matter of fact, down in that sector on his way in towards turn 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now through turn 10 and 11 here at Hislops. Through turn 12 we go. We see all but one driver out on track. We've just seen now every driver is out on the field here, with VSR Grizz being the last to exit the pit lane. Oatsy down towards turn 5 as we speak. A little bit of a snap there for the number 6. Possibly around to forget then out of round 13. He was looking at the chances of being on the podium, but it all came asunder over the course of the first of our 2 rounds today here at Oulton Park. We can see now joining the grid once more. The number 420 of Region is back for blood. He's out for revenge after the way things panned out through round 13. This could be a fiery performance from the 420. Currently resides in the pit lane. 7 minutes, just a little under 8 minutes left to go in today's qualifying session. The first onto the timing charts will be Elite Cassie as he starts his flying lap. He's currently out through turn 3 at Cascades. We wait to see what is the call for the 420. So currently that timing chart will be the 90, by the looks of it, the 98, the 196 and the 4 to be our first 3 times on the chart. We still wait to see what is going to be going on for the 420. He currently holds there at the front of the pit lane, pit box number 27 for the 420. Is there, he tries to get engaged in the first get. Did he stall it there? A little bit of trouble with the transmission, but now he gets the car rolling. The 420 on his way out of the pit lane. You see here with Grizz right behind him, the 96 of VSR Twiglet, the 2 running down towards the line here. They're on to start their flying laps. Let's see if we can catch on board though with Elite Cassie making his way down through turn 15. Currently on the exit of Druids down towards Lodge Corner. In towards turn 16 we go then. Little slide there. Lines him up nicely for the run into turn 17. He will have scrubbed just a little bit of time, but to be the first time on the charts then with just under 6.5 minutes left to go, it's invalidated for Elite Cassie. So a bizarre turn of fate for him. He won't be the benchmark time for round 14's qualifying. The 196 finds himself in imminent trouble. You can see there nearly collecting the number 1 of VSR Antion. Does great aversion to get out of his way, but I think he may have sacrificed the validity of his own flying lap. The number 1 out of turn 16 down towards the line. Will he be the first of our times on the timing chart today for round 14? Down towards the line he goes, and that seems to be a case that no. 196 then provisionally becomes the first time on the charts, but as we saw the issue from earlier, you can see how far off that is in the face of an actual time. The 61 becomes our new benchmark, a 136.907 by the Blue Frog, last round's pole sitter. VSR Oatsy now second fastest by 635 thousandths of a second. Art Vandelay 71 there. That is a quote appropriate date to end this season on. There's been plenty of gunpowder, treason and plot. Ooh, I'm actually annoyed I didn't come up with that. That is a good one. VSR Grizz across the line, third fastest there. He finds himself at the moment just about a little over 2 tenths, I should say, of a second to VSR Oatsy in second place. Next to the line at the moment, the 98. Will it be a valid time this time around for Elite Cassie on his way to the line, or is he potentially sandbagging in that 98? Now, I've seen this tactic used before, where drivers do spend the majority of the qualifying session keeping their opponents guessing. And it is cheeky, but it is incredibly risky, and I don't think this is intentional out of the 98. We can see those imminent struggles through Sector 1. He is forced all the way over onto the right-hand side of the track on his way down towards turn 3. We can see that little inkling of understeer in the Porsche. Number 1 next to the line, that was VSR Antion onto the timing charts there, puts himself second fastest. Then the 196 from behind doesn't improve on times there. The 61 next to the line is the Blue Frog. Then from behind him, the number 4 of Shawnee Mack. Will it be an extension over his fastest? 136.9 remains at this time. Shawnee Mack, we just missed him to the line there, but he goes up to 5th fastest, 1.7 seconds off of pole position. Bear in mind, time is becoming quite thin here, and we've still yet to see times out of either Elite Cassie or from Regent. The 44 is next towards the line here. VSR Grizz currently 4th fastest in today's session. Needs 848 thousandths of a second to put himself up to pole position. Can he make his way up to the second row? Yes, he can. As a matter of fact, splits it straight down the middle. 498 thousandths of a second. Puts him in second place. And on that front row, we've still yet to see a time from the 98 or the 420. But I believe our time runneth over. Down towards the line here comes Elite Cassie. First fastest there. Pole position right off the bat. Better late than never. 7 minutes in to this 10-minute quali session. Finally lodges a time on the chart, and he's half a second up on his championship rival. This is not great news for the 61 if he continues to play second fiddle here to the 98. That gap between himself and Elite Cassie is going to wither away right as we get in towards Hungaroring. Bear in mind, that's if they continue to finish on 1-2s. That's a case where he finishes even anywhere further back whilst Cassie continues to stay on this form. His championship could be at risk. Right now, that gap after round 13 is 29 points up front between Cassie and the Blue Frog. Crossed the line a moment ago. Believe we just saw there the 196 Bully Boy now up and ahead of Shawnee Mack in 6th place in qualifying today. 420 at the moment, a driver we've still yet to see onto the timing charts, and that's Regent, and he was predicted at pole position, so I'm expecting in the same vein we've seen from the 61 and the 98 a real heavy hitting time from the 420. Bear in mind, he's not got a lot of time to make it count. So from where he stands right now, this is a very precarious spot. He's scrubbed about 2 minutes away of his qualifying time by not being in the session. So he has found himself in a bit of a make or break situation. You can see that intensity mounting on him as he now cuts over his laps round turn 12. So he's really in quite a hurry. As by the looks of it for the 420, it's a one-shot qualifying for Regent. Currently 8th in today's session, could be 9th by the time we see a time from the 96 of VSR Twiggler, who's actually behind the 420 now after his cut through his lap. So that's a lot of get up and go here from the 420. Down towards turn 16 then. Better late than never, as we saw already was the modus operandi of the 98 earlier on today. Down towards the line then to start his flying lap. We're on board with Regent. This is his last opportunity then. We'll keep active track of the rest of the field, but we're going to stay on the screen here with the 420 in his one and done qualifying endeavours here for round 14 of the championship to put himself potentially up on the front row or even on to pole position. Now the chances there are very slim amongst the top 3. We see actually now entering the charge Bully Boy in the 196, second fastest, now pushed down to 3rd as Blue Frog goes the new fastest time of the session so far. Actually Elite Cassie now second fastest. Actually, so no, it was, as a matter of fact, it was Cassie, then Bully Boy, and now it's Blue Frog, Cassie, and Bully Boy. By 25 thousandths of a second, incredibly close margins here. We're still on board with Regent. Could that be the cut that breaks his qualifying endeavours, the straw that breaks the camel's back with 30 seconds left to go? If he tries to cut over it now, he will not have enough time by the time he gets down towards the line. So this has to be it for the 420. Out through turn 12 we go. This is quite a hectic state of affairs. VSR Grizz goes up to 3rd. He himself 78 thousandths from pole position. Can the tie be broken by any one driver on today's field, with plenty of drivers still yet to make their way to the line? The 98 has invalidated, so Cassie at the best of times looks to start in second place, and by the looks of it, the 61 is on pole for the time being. We'll see down to the line though. Does the 420 lodge a time onto the charts, and by where does he find himself? down across the line he goes from 8th, pole position, 136.150. That is heroic stuff from the 420. The 61, though, bear in mind, is still out on track. Could he fight this one back? He held on to pole position in the clasping final moments of quali today. Can he take it back off of the 420? Here's the 61 to the line. The Blue Frog goes up to pole by 75 thousandths of a second. What an ending to qualifying we've seen there. That was up in the grasps of 4, actually make it 5 different drivers at the end of qualifying today. That is really quite something. That was properly heroic stuff from that front row. Expect some action between the Blue Frog and Regent reunited on the front row. It's almost a mirror match of round 13's top 4. Now with Bully Boy in 5th, he could find himself right up in the midst of it, down towards turns 1, 2, and 3 at Old Hall, Dentons and Cascades. So that's the end of qualifying. And as mentioned before, we discussed the news for Formula 2 and the World Rally Championships. Unfortunately, we don't have any more news to hand at this time, but just picking back up on that, it's going to be quite exciting coming into the final 2 rounds of the WRC, with Rally Japan coming up next, and then the brand new Rally Saudi Arabia. It's going to present a very unique challenge to the grid today. Could it be experience overall for Seb Ogier? Could it be Elfyn Evans' first ever championship and the first British champion since Richard Burns back in 2001? Our first champion potentially in 24 years. Or could it be a retirement run for the ages for Kalle Rovanperä, making his 3rd as he looks to make his leave of the World Rally Championship? Well, let's find out how today's round goes before we can answer any of those questions. 3 minutes then before the start of round 14, and now we find ourselves eclipsed in night time here in Little Budworth, Cheshire at Oulton Park, as now we begin the run on to round 14 of the championship in one of our final chapters coming here in the UK before we head over to Silverstone to close out the chapter here in the British Isles before heading into mainland Europe. Heralding the start of that grid once more is the 61, double pole positions then for the Blue Frog, and that was a very valiant charge to put himself in that position, and an even greater charge, I would say, one and done for Regent to put himself 2nd place. Originally it was onto pole position, but as it turned out, it was just not to be. 75 thousandths of a second between the pair of them at the end of this gone qualifying. He puts him on the front row once more. Has he learned from the mistakes of his past then? Let's find out this time around, as making that 2nd row again is Elite Cassie and VSR Grizz. Then behind them, Bully Boy in the top 5, and alongside VSR Antion, VSR Oatsy 7th, Shawnee Mac 8th, and VSR Twiglet 9th. We're without Smug Git then. So 9 cars as opposed to 10. Could we be seeing action anywhere in the same frequency now, with these drivers very well acclimatized to this grid and to its various eccentricities and to one another's attitudes towards the track? Could we find ourselves with a little bit more refined racing than some of the maelstrom we saw from earlier on today? So with about a minute left to go, for the Blue Frog, he has found himself in a very solid spot here, but so too could be made the argument of the 98 of Elite Cassie. We've seen what he can do when he starts in the wake of that leading position. He is effectively onto that prime racing line. As we know that the Blue Frog will be looking to defend from Regent, it could allow an easier avenue for the 98, and that's the kind of gaps he was able to exploit to put himself up into that fight for the race lead in the first place back at round 13. So not long now from that 30-second warning, we'll be getting on board with the pole sitter. 2 on the trot here in Oulton Park for the Blue Frog in the 61. We stay on board here with the number 61 up at the front, as he'll be taking us away. The lights come on here on what is a 9-car grid here in Oulton Park for the final of 2 races today here at round 14 of VSR Phoenix Season 9. The low hum there of that 4-litre Porsche MA 2.23 engine. You can see here a bit more of an intense start on those tyres. Blue Frog rocketing down towards turn 1. We saw as well lighting up his rear end was the number 420 and the number 98. They're trying to quite aggressively build heat in those tyres. You can see there the swerving from the 61, and that's because in nighttime racing, of course, we've not got the sun out there baking the track. It is really going to be maintained by the friction on those tyres. So track temperatures will be at an all-time low here in Oulton Park. So it's up to the drivers to maintain and build that core temperature in the Pirellis to get the most out of their cars and the tyres' performance over the course of the next 30 minutes of racing. So it's really, really on them here. They'll get no assistance from Mother Nature. Down towards turn 4, we saw it claim smug git earlier on, and we've seen over the last couple of runnings here at Oulton Park in VSR Phoenix that this has been a pretty lively section of the track. Currently, yes, as we've just seen there, data given in from Regent, 13 degrees on track temperature. Really not a lot to play with there in terms of core temperature gain and loss on those tyres. We've seen already how aggressive these Porsches are on the Pirellis, and that's in good, favourable conditions. Think about how slippery things are going to be getting for these drivers now that they've got much colder. I wouldn't say anywhere near drastically cold, but it's definitely a bit nippier than I think they're used to, especially given the context of last round just gone, where we had quite nice daytime weather. He's done it in the day, but can he do it at night time? That's the question for the 98 of Elite Cassie. Having took that race win in the daytime, you can see him cutting across Hislops there. For Blue Frog, his mind will be solely focused now on defending both the 420 and the 98. A Herculean task, no doubt. Down towards turns 1, 2, and 3. He is looking to recuperate on some of the losses suffered over round 13, where he's lost out on a little bit of that chunk he's carved out in the lead of the Gold Championship. 29 points between himself and the 98 down in third. Regent looking for a little slice of glory of his own. He was predicted at pole position, has missed out twice in a row to the 61, but he won't get fooled again as we head into round 14. And we make our way out of turn 15 at Druids onto Warwick Bridge. Stay on board with the lead of this pack here as they start the formation process. 9 cars in all, 1 down from last round. As we head down towards the line then. Heading towards turn 16, then turn 17. We may be down a man, but the grid will still be fired up and ready to go. Down towards turn 16, then to turn 17. We begin the procession down towards the start-finish line here for round 14 of the championship. We've already seen some theatrics here in Oulton Park. Now we get to do it all over again under the cloak of night for round 14 of season 9 of VSR Phoenix. Without further ado, for the second and final time here at Oulton Park, we're green and racing for 30 minutes. And again, a great start by the 420 of Regent. Could it be second time's the charm? Down towards turn 1, we see around the outside at Old Hall, a great exit by the 420 to keep himself side by side. He'll be to the inside by the looks of it on the run. Down towards turn 3, he shunts there. The 98 of Elite Cassie out of commission. We see him slides down the pack in towards the number 1 here of VSR Antion. Tucks in behind, but that's a controversial start. Had ever I seen one. In the background, yellow flags out at the moment. The 44 was caught in the maelstrom. That's Grizz down at the back of the field. So elbows very firmly out there for Regent. If the message was not crystal clear that he is not happy with the way things have been going, let it be known there that that was a shoulder check on his way out of turn 1. Out through Britons. Now, right now, we can see Blue Frog, Regent, and Bully Boy for our podium right now. Right behind him is Elite Cassie in the number 98. Scorned by that move. He'll be out for blood. This could get nasty here on a run down towards Hislops. Down through turn 12, but a great start by the Blue Frog. He's going to be absolutely chuffed with a start like that. He was right up against it through turns 1, 2, and 3. We can see in the background already Elite Cassie getting himself back into the line of fire. We can see the 44 now engaging on the number 4, but takes quite a bit of grass with him. Very nearly trouble for VSR Grizz as we head down towards Druids. Now up to Warwick Bridge. You can see dust kicked in the eye there. So trouble up the road, and that's VSR Twiglets, I should say. That was in imminent trouble. We saw pretty much crept up on the drivers right then and there, just observing as well. In the meantime, Grizz is now up to 8th place, having gone up the inside at turn 16. You can see there, just emerging from the shadows, was the 96. Very little in the way of either of those two drivers being able to do something about it. The 96 into the pit lane, that could be a DNF on the charts for VSR Twiglet. Disaster for him on the exit of turn 15. Regent in second, Cassie now up to third, having gotten ahead of Bully Boy over the course of that incident from further down the road. This is a dangerous sight to be had here. 3 gold drivers. A championship still lingers amongst them between that 61 and the 98. Now wedged firmly in between the pair. Has grown to be the nemesis of Elite Cassie, that being Regent in the number 420. We'll have to catch up with that in a moment's time. Yellow flags are out. We see trouble for the 98 as he bounces on the exit. But this is where the trouble was really caught. And it's for, looking at it here, Shawnee Mack, another victim claimed by the indiscriminate wrath of Island Bend at turn 4. That's a sad sight to see for Shawnee Mack. He finds himself now very, very far from the field, down in 8th place. We're back in the green flag conditions for the time being. Getting a look on the rest of the field right now. Trying to pick up the pieces on what on earth has just happened. It's serious connectivity trouble for the 61 of the Blue Frog at this time. We can see a little bit flickering here and there. I don't like the sights of what I'm seeing here, and I'm really hoping for the sake of this grid. Oh, it could get nasty here. I hope we're not looking at a server disconnect. It would not be grand to be having another one of those. Right now, it still shows the Blue Frog in the lead, but he is flickering in and out of reality. Shawnee Mack with a stop-go 30-second penalty, so it's gone from bad to worse for the number 4 over the course of today's 4 minutes of racing in round 14. Watching here with Regent, he finds himself 2.5 seconds from the race lead, but pay attention to that gap between himself and Elite Cassie as it starts to wither away. 1.2 now, 1.1 seconds now, 1.0 as they make their way down towards Island Bend. It was just dropping in there to 0.9. So watching here with Regent, he's set to become quite a set piece event here. That battle of second place between two scorned rivals coming up. And this is going to be some prime 2021 Formula 1 level stuff between these two. Shawnee Mack into the pit lanes for the time being to serve that stop-go 30-second penalty. In the background, you can see Bully Boy and Antion absolutely mauling each other there. Let's see if we can get a gander down the road just to see a scope of what's going on here. This is in the fight for 4th place. Bully Boy defending from VSR Antion. Meanwhile, you can see just briefly up the line there, that was the 61. Looking out through turn 12, these two very, very close to one another. Big snap of oversteer there past turn 12. Now as we make our way to Clay Hill, up to 4th place goes VSR Antion. We'll catch on with them in a moment's time. We take a look up here onto the podium with right now Elite Cassie and Regent, the two absolutely locked in for a fight of second place. We're now on board with Elite Cassie following in the wake here of the 420, but he runs super wide out through turn 16, drops a lot of time away. He was right on top there of the 420, now drops away after a bit of a kerfuffle for him down at turn 16 and 17. Blue Frog still snapping in and out of reality there. That is a bit of a risk for the 61. Bit of a scary sight here. For his sake, I really do hope he doesn't have any more connection troubles as right now to be within a chance of winning a race here in Season 9 would absolutely be vital for his championship hopes. A disconnect would be the worst case scenario, but we're still seeing that 61 is clasping for any kind of bandwidth there, like a fish out of water, gasping for just another hit of the water. Right now, still watching with Elite Cassie and Regent. The two seemingly in that fight for second, but with the 61 still blipping in and out, it's kind of hard to keep track of what position this really stands to gain. You see up the order. Because of all of that flickering, the 61, we can't actually see too much of him. Now, maybe a different case for the drivers where they can see that the 61's got their lights on, and for the 61, he probably still does have his lights on. But so we've been told by a few informants of ours that they sometimes can't actually see the lights. We see there quite a bit of argy-bargy is getting around after Clay Hill is the 98 of Elite Cassie. Not happy at all with Regent, now heading down towards Druids. He's up to what I believe is second. I honestly do not have much a clue myself. Or the Blue Frog. This is a bit dire straits. A high ping warning issued for the 61. Right now we're on board with Elite Cassie, and now I can't really ascertain whether or not he's gained up to first or if he's still in second. Right now the data seems to indicate that he's in second place and ahead of Regent. We'll have to get a more comprehensive update on that as and when we've got more information to hand, but things are looking a little bit complex in the way of things for that race lead. We see here with VSR Oatsy now chasing on the trails of VSR Antion now since having got up ahead of Bully Boy and put 5 seconds on him in that 196. The number 6 finds himself at the back of the top 5. See here amongst the ranks of the pit lane, the number 4 and the number 96, that's VSR Twiglet and Shawnee Mack in the pit lane after nearly 10 minutes of racing. You'll note if our camera cuts away, that is the reason why, and that's because trying to keep some kind of track here on the 61 is proven to be an impossible task. The 61 really struggling to keep connected to the server. You can see the game struggling to pick up on who's who in that race lead. On board with Regent, having since recently lost position out, still finds himself on the podium, but he's not going to be particularly happy. Those two already having a trade of shoulder checks over the course of the last 8 minutes. This could still sour between the pair of them over the course of the next 22 minutes of racing here in round 14. Looking at where the standings are concerned, the Blue Frog, you can see, has been blipping in and out, but right now holds onto the race lead with the fastest lap. Elite Cassie in second, Regent third, Antion fourth, Oatsy fifth, Bully Boy sixth, and Grizz in seventh. Shawnee Mack, having just come out of the pits, has another stop go 30 to serve, and he's in 8th place, rounding out the field in what looks to be a DNF today. The 96 of VSR Twiglet in 9th. You can see, though, very close stuff here, as recently having moved up into 6th place ahead of Bully Boy. That's VSR Grizz. Now puts 0.4 of a second as we head into turn 1, running wide out through Old Hall onto the grass. Goes Bully Boy, and that's a spin for the 196. Yellow flags out here at Sector 1. Now having since righted himself, back up and running on his way down towards turn 2 at Denton's. And see, since having gained position, Elite Cassie has not wasted any time here. At the last recorded interval, 2.5 seconds he's put now on the 420 of Region, down in 3rd place. Shawnee Mack back into the pit lanes in the number 4. You see that little bit of a lock there over the front right on the number 98. So he's running his ABS very close to the chest here. That's what's given him such great stopping power, but it does come with very, very great risk for Elite Cassie. For the Blue Frog, though, it seems that his connection troubles have started to stabilize just a little bit here. The 61 holds the lead of the race, but now after a few blips in and out, shows that his lights are off. Rest assured that I don't believe the Blue Frog is mad enough to run an entire race now with no lights. Moreover, he'd be given a penalty by the stewards for doing so. So as far as he's concerned, his lights are still on, but for us, it is a very bizarre sight because the game now registers as him having his lights off. What we can confirm now at this time, though, all drivers are back out onto the track, including VSR Twiglet. Now 5 laps down from the race lead. He's back out onto the track adamant to see the checkered flag. 19.5 minutes to go then. Let's get back on board with some of the drivers amongst the field here, as battling has all but simmered down for a while here. We see from Regent's point of view now as they start to run into traffic courtesy of Twiglet and now Shawnee Mack as well. Starting to find further complications in efforts to keep pace with the car in second. Right now, the nearest fight on track looks to be between Oatsy and Antion. 3 seconds and potentially closing for 4th place. We'll stay on board with Oatsy and we'll be back in just a moment's time. Actually, just before we do that, we did see the white flags, then the yellow flags come out for just a moment, but that has since cleared itself. So yes, we will stay on board with Oatsy as he makes his way through Sector 3. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So still monitoring on board here with VSR Oulton. Right now, that gap has since opened up a little bit more to 3.2 seconds. Shawnee Mac now finds himself in the way of this potential fight for 4th place as it continues to develop. The gap now 2.9 seconds. So that continues to fluctuate in the very finest of values. And for Oulton, he finds himself rather precariously at the back of the top 5 for now, with not seemingly a lot of agency in the matter. Looking further around the field to see where battles could be hotting back up here. Getting a look onto that podium. The gap at the last interval there, 6.1 seconds between Elite Cassie and Regent. So the chances for a fight back onto P2 is going to be solely dependent on Cassie's ability not to screw up and not to make any more mistakes in today's race. We saw a few hiccups, but so far so good for the 98. Now on board with the number 4, here's Shawnee Mac down in 8th place on his way out through turn 3, caught in between 4th and 5th, VSR Antion and VSR Oulton. We can see further down the line, we can see is Bully Boy on his way to the line, 7th place and 17.5 seconds from VSR Grizz. You see that battling has all but gone extinct in round 14 of the championship in the wake of quite a mixed bag for racing today. Gap between 4th and 5th resides at just about 2.9, make it 2.8 seconds, fluttering in between the two values. So what it is telling us, we have a very slow trend here of that gap starting to wither away, and then it fluctuates back up to about 3 seconds, and then it's mostly through, I'm seeing there, that middle sector. So between the two chicanes of Britons and Hislops is where we're seeing the bulk of that time drop away. Now as we see heading in towards sector 3, that could be the indication to us then that Antion's running a much lower downforce setup to capitalize on areas like this on the run from turn 16 down towards turn 1, and moreover down between turns 3 and 4. He's able to keep a lot in terms of that straight line speed. The more technical areas is clearly where Oatsy's got to set up a little bit more adjusted. We're at the halfway mark of the race, so getting a look at the grid at large, we can see that Twiglet emerges here behind Shawnee Mac in 8th place. The two on broadly different lengths of today's race. 2 laps off for Shawnee Mac, 8 laps off for VSR Twiglet. But looking around the field now at large, with just under half the race left to go, still leading the charge on a spotty connection, the 61 of the Blue Frog, you can see still having a little bit of trouble here and there. Elite Cassie in 2nd place, Regent in 3rd, VSR Antion in 4th, Oatsy in 5th, Grizz in 6th, Bully Boy 7th, Shawnee Mac 8th, and VSR Twiglet in 9th. So where we were hoping for a little bit more action in today's race, we've definitely seen creeping in a lot more hesitancy in the wake of nighttime racing, a lot less available grip, courtesy of that colder track temperature. The drivers are going to be spending more time trying to nurture the car into good health than they are using it as a weapon against one another. And case in point, we're seeing gaps here defined in seconds rather than tenths. For the greater majority of today's race, it has been mostly a consistency battle. In terms of recreational sports, I'd say we've gone from airsoft or paintball down at round 13. And now we're at chess for round 14. It's a lot more methodical than we've seen in the last race there. We had a few bats here of action over the course of round 14, but otherwise, as we've hit the halfway mark, it's simmered down into a consistency fight, almost a glorified time trial at this point. So looking further ahead, whilst we've got a gap in the broadcast here, looking further ahead to the future here on VSR Phoenix, and looking at the rest of that calendar, of course, we've yet to leave Great Britain in this chapter, round 13, and now we're in round 14 with 13 minutes still left to go. Then we're over to Silverstone on October 29th. Now, I'm expecting big things out of this round. The last couple of trips here to British circuits, Brands Hatch and Donington Park, and now Oulton Park today, have all given us at least something to come away with. We see in the background, though, that's trouble for Shawnee Mac at the Shell Oils corner. A little bit of trouble from there. He rejoins the track in a decently good health. Back onto that calendar, though. With Silverstone being in round 15, the last of our 60-minute races, we've seen that the track is just wide enough and just long enough to facilitate some properly solid races out of GT3, but we've yet to see really what it can do for the world of Porsche Cups. Now, of course, as I mentioned, I've been to the 2022 British Grand Prix. I've seen the Porsche Cups race at Silverstone, and it was quite an exciting fight there. It was a fantastic sight indeed to watch the cars go flying around the track as well. But really, the test of how good a track this will be for our grid will come up next week on October 29th. The Hungaroring, I have no doubts in my mind, given the event format with a double sprint race to kick off the, well, to round out, I should say, the season, as opposed to kick off. That would be Brands Hatch if we were talking about that. But to round out the season, another double sprint event. And at a track as technical as the Hungaroring, it should provide a very solid challenge for our drivers today, though. But at a track like Oulton Park, it is make it or break it. And we saw quite a lot of making it in round 13. Not a lot of breaking it this time around. So a little under 11.5 minutes left to go as we enter that talk of the final third of today's race. The Blue Frog continues to lead. Now he's actually turned his lights back on, so that's a relief for the 61. Lights now back on for him there. No troubles in terms of visibility. And Elite Cassie, I want to point this out. That gap is slowly but surely dropping. That's now, its last interval was 5.6 seconds. We'll see what the gap's looking like at the next recorded interval, 5.2. So that's 0.4 of a second in the span of, what, 3 corners? This could get very exciting here. Stay on board with Elite Cassie as we are looking at what could potentially be a fight for the lead. As a matter of fact, let's more relevantly see if we can get on board here for long enough with the 61 leading today's charge. It's the Blue Frog in the number 61 Porsche on his way down through turn 1. Looking at those previous wins, the Blue Frog has only gone with one win. That was at the last round, actually around 11. The first of 2 races ran out of Zandvoort. There's back-to-back wins between the pair at the front of the Gold Championship, trading blows through Zandvoort. Blue Frog could be looking at his second, so will it be Blue Frog's second? Will it be Cassie's fourth? Only time will tell us different. 10 minutes left to go in today's session. We're on board with the 61. Looking over his rear view reveals a bit of a haunting sight because that faint glow in the distance there, that is the number 98. We will have to cut away from these two just for a moment. We do have yellow flags once again, this time on the exit of turn 5. Having returned now to the pit lane, the number 4 of Shawnee Mack. Could that be the end of the road here in round 14? Back in the green flag conditions then for 9 minutes of racing. Back on board with the 61. The gap now having since come up from 5 seconds to about 6 there over the course of lap 12. Down towards turn 4, then on the run into turn 5. Now this is an area of the track we've seen quite a lot of trouble, and now we get to look on board with the race leader, the Blue Frog, in tackling just how that is the case. And you can see it's quite a complex corner in terms of its geometry, and it's a banked corner as well down through turn 5. Very easy for the cars to overextend. Moreover, if you don't perfectly loop into that, almost like you would at, say, thinking of it here, Hugenholtz at Zandvoort would be a great example from last round, but looking further around the world of motorsports, another corner that does tend to remind me of is the Caracciola Carousel at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. If you don't hook it into the curves of that corner, it's going to wash you out. We've seen it so many times where drivers have gone into that corner and understeered all the way to the far side barrier. 7 minutes left to go. Looking at the last interval there now, having come up to 6.6, make it 6.7 seconds. So the chances may have just dropped away for the fight of the race lead. We do have another bout of yellow flags here. It was for Bully Boy down in 7th. That's since cleared itself out on the exit of Britain's. Looking at where the nearest fights could come from, VSR Anti on 4.7 seconds from Regent. Now, the greater likelihood of that fight occurring still remains quite slim, as has been the case for quite a few battles over the course of today's race. Another fight that could be kicking off in the next 6 minutes, 4.5 seconds in closing between the 44 and the 6. Oh, but that's all come asunder. That's for VSR Grizz. Great control of the car to keep himself from the wall. That is a real code brown for the 44. I'm sure his heart's at his throat now after that move. See here with Regent down towards Britain's. You can see how well he can attack that area of the track. Very, very tight, very, very small amount of room to work with in a car so unstable. We can see, though, that the gap is starting to quite drastically wither away here, where we thought the likelihood of it was pretty slim in the great scheme of things. You can see right now 3.6 seconds and dropping. VSR Antion could find himself in a... Oh, never mind. I've just seen the intervals come away massively. Let's see what was the case here for the number 1. He has dropped away up Clay Hill, now through Water Tower at turn 14 in towards Druids. Now the gap's back up at 4.3 seconds. So something didn't quite connect with him past turn 12. 5.5 minutes left to go. Functionally looking at it, about I want to say about 4 more laps here, perhaps even 3 here in Oulton Park before the end of round 14. In that last lap, though, 0.6 of a second faster for VSR Antion. The likelihood that he could still fight with Regent by the end of this race, it is there, and like I mentioned before, it is slim, but we may have to reconsider what our estimations of it were, as is shown right now for the greater part of things that he's capable of keeping with, but he's making these little mistakes like we saw at turn 12, and as we just saw there through Cascades, something's not connecting between that front and rear on the number 1. He is struggling for grip somewhere. Ooh, that was the number 44 and a spot up over there out through Cascades. The 96 is in. VSR Twiglet was seemingly in trouble. Now he's back into the pit lane. 4.5 minutes left to go. That's functionally the end of the road for the 96 in today's race. So you see here with VSR Antion, now we're going to stay on board here with the Silver Division driver and his efforts to catch up with Regent and see if he runs into the same spot of bother again. This is on the exit of turn 12. Not this time around, so he does stay with 4.2 seconds the gap right now between himself and a podium in today's race. The number 4 going slow in the wake of the 61. I believe that is just Shawnee Mack letting the Blue Frog on by before Cascades at turn 3. The number 6 in trouble. That's VSR Oatsy out through turn 12 on the run up Clay Hill. So what on earth has gone on there? So you see the 6 going slow, the 4 still going slow, the 196 now going slow as well. A lot of drivers slowing down. You can make the argument for the 4 that was to let the 61 and the 98 pass, but we can see VSR Oatsy is slowing down quite quickly here. Let's see exactly why that is. Is he looking for... Oh, my word. Big incident there for Grizz. Again, another good spot of car control. Once he gets himself into that situation, it is very, very hard to get yourself out. So he has done quite a solid job so far, wrestling that machine back into capitulation. We are now looking here at a fight seemingly for 5th place. Now, whether or not this has been orchestrated or not is another question entirely. I'm still not 100% sure what compelled Oatsy to slow down. Nonetheless, we are looking here at a fight for 5th. But again, it seems to be the Achilles heel here for the 44. It's just that rear end stability. Whatever Grizz does, he's getting on the throttle just a millisecond too early, and it's kicking that 44 out. It's like an angry horse. Down towards Hislops we go then. The number 6 still on the defensive from the 44, but it's a case here of if the 44 can get alongside the number 6, can he keep the car in tow by the time he gets a position up? Right now, it seems to have been him against the machine, more so than any other driver in the course of today's race. Grizz has been struggling here in the nighttime conditions at Oulton Park. Down towards turn 15 at Druids, and again, strikes him there on the back. He does get the rotation in, so as I mentioned as well to Cassie, you know, if the case here where sim racing and GT and cup car racing never really seems to work out, more than happy to take those skills where they could definitely be used to great effect in rally. Down towards the line then to start lap 18. These two still very close to one another, a minute and a half left to go. Meanwhile, just observing passively that gap between Antion and Regent sits at about 5 seconds. So the chances for those two to fight as we come on to what is going to be the final lap in a moment's time from the 61 remains incredibly slim. The number 4 going slow to let Bully Boy on past. Down towards turn 5 at the Shell Oils. You can see how heavy the banking is there, really at the apex of turn 5, and how much that affects the cars on rotation. In through turn 6, then immediately onto the brakes for the run into turn 7. That is an incredibly tight section of the track there. The camera's doing pretty good justice to illustrate that point, to drive that point home, just how small of an area you actually have to work with. Down through turns 6, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I should say. My mistake there. Forgot how to count. The 61 is onto that final lap, so we'll be catching on board in a moment's time with the Blue Frog, who looks to take his second victory in this championship after winning back in Zandvoort this season. Has seemingly repaired the damages of last race. We're seeing here with Grizz and Oatsy as they head on to the final lap here in Oulton Park. These two still going absolutely hell for leather for 5th place. The 44 versus the number 6, of course, former championship rivals down in silver. Now Grizz looks to lead the charge for silver's division, moving up to gold for season 10, but going massively off track into the tire wall. It is the end of the line, surely, for the 44. That's critical. Somehow being able to avoid the motorsporting Grim Reaper, he has been able to somehow, despite that massive hit against the wall, come out, relatively speaking, unscathed. Well, we'll have to catch up with him later on. As heading down towards the line here, set to receive the arrival of the 61 for his second win this season, repairing the damages of last round to continue leading the championship. Down towards the line, the checkered flag flies. Blue Frog wins in Oulton Park. A great turnaround for him then. He's turned bad into good. Where he had lost out on his championship gap, he has now seemingly filled up all the cracks, used all of the tape there, and with that fastest lap over Elite Cassie, it's come back to being 35 points in the lead of things for the gold championship leader. Elite Cassie, second place. Regent to the line. A stop-go 10-second penalty for VSR Grizz. That is a rare sight indeed. Regent to the line there. Finishes on the podium. VSR Antion to the line then, not too far away, 4.6 seconds. Had they had an hour-long race, I had no doubt in my mind these two could possibly have caught each other today. Grizz seemingly up in 5th as Oatsy, having a spot above there in the background, is Bully Boy. Grizz down towards the line. And what is going on here is Oatsy, I think Oatsy is slowing down so that 10-second penalty continues to give Grizz that top 5. I mean, it's a good gesture here, but that's 40 seconds. So, well, I'm sure he would have appreciated the gesture, having not served it, slapped another 30 seconds on top. It's 40 seconds overall. Those two had a fun little fight at the end of today's race. The Blue Frog wins in round 14 of the championship. Elite Cassie in 2nd, Regent in 3rd, VSR Antion in 4th, VSR Oatsy 5th, VSR Grizz in 6th. Bully Boy 7th and Shawnee Mac 8th, 2 DNFs from Smudgit and Twiglet. Fastest lap goes to the Blue Frog in the 61, so he's effectively nullified all of the advances made by Elite Cassie in the round before. They find themselves exactly where they started today's 2 set of races at a 35-point distance, coming into Silverstone for round 15 of the championship. Looking exactly as to when that's going to be. That's going to be on October 29th. Then, of course, the season finale on Bonfire Night. There's been plenty of gunpowder, treason and plot over the course of the season, so what better than to wrap everything up on November 5th? at the Hungaroring. Round 16 and 17 of the championship. But coming up next will be round 15 at Silverstone. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Well done to our 2 race winners today, Elite Cassie and the Blue Frog. Trading blows like they did back in Zandvoort. This could be all up to task here, heading in to the last couple of rounds. That's all from us. Take care. Good night.